The Mercury Show.
What up, and welcome to the Mercury Show, Ep.1. Of course, the first day I do a podcast, there was like a party at the bar outside my house. So my apologies for the background noise. Probably won't do it at this time again. But that being said, today I want to talk a bit about Metallica. I know. I said I wouldn't talk about Metallica, or I didn't want to really, but we're just going to get the first one out of the way, and then that's going to be it. I want to talk about the new record and what the new record, what to expect and what I expect, and, just break down a few things here. So, they have announced that they're working on new music, and that was last year at some point, right? And then we've heard some updates about it since then. And, I heard the last thing I think was on Kerrang. They said that the new album would be like, they're making glacial progress. So because of all the delays with COVID and not being able to be together and all that sort of stuff, it's difficult for them to put music together and, write and record in like an organic sort of way. And, I can understand that. That's fair. And, it seems awful soon for a Metallica record to come out anyways, because historically, at least like 90s on, they've taken years to put out records, with touring and they take a long time to put out records. And, between Death Magnetic and, Hardwired, there was some years there. So, a couple years later, it seems really, really soon. But I mean, this is now what? I mean, I guess it is like 5 years since it came out. So, that's not bad. But, okay, fine. So, I kind of shut myself up there. The thing I think is that, there's not a whole lot of innovation going on. And I'm not saying that we're going to get some like crap record. We haven't got a crap record. Last two have been good. And I wasn't a giant hater of Saint Anger. It's not my favorite. But I'm not a giant fan of it. So I've had a couple decent records with some good songs on them, some good singles, whatever, some heavy stuff, some not heavy stuff, little too much auto-tune, whatever. They're old. They're getting old. Been in the game for a long time, but yeah, I don't think innovation is really like the main point of their music anymore. It's more so like fan service. And that is cool, but it also worries me to some extent, because then you're kind of just like, instead of like doing what the fans want, it's almost like you're doing what you think the fans want all the time. And that's not always the case, but in terms of innovation, I think, it's hard, because they've got, I think, two ideas of innovation, or at least like what they think are innovation. And that's like, the first one is do what everybody else is doing with a Metallica spin, as we've seen in like, Load, Reload, Saint Anger. Do what all the other people are doing, what's trendy, what's happening right now. And with the Metallica on top of it, maybe it'll sound like something, cool. And the second is, do what we used to do, or at least a version of what we think we used to do, and then put out songs that are new but sound like similar, or have like a similar vibe, or they're just kind of like a refrain of the old songs. So there hasn't been a whole lot of innovation since like the Black Album. And they, in terms of their own sound, there has been, they have progressed, they've moved along, they've put out different sounding things all the time, which is cool. They mature. You're not going to put out blasting heavy stuff your entire career. In some cases, there are still bands that are just absolutely old bands that are still making really, really good music, but and true to their original form. But it seems like a lot of the time Metallica is just doing what they think sounds like people want and what they think sounds like their old music. And, you know, we've got a bunch of problems here, like, that might be the reason why. We've got, you know, switching bass players. We've got, you know, guitar solos that are strange and different and you know, not super Metallica style, but not super, like, great either. You know, if you're going to do something different, you know, I'm not interested in writing traditional guitar solos, I think Kirk Hammett said. And it's like, okay, if you're not going to write traditional guitar solos, write a good guitar solo at the very least, not wow, wow on everything. Like, that's all it is. It's wah pedal and wow. You know, so whatever. But, you know, I know I sound like I'm ragging on these guys, but they're like my top 3 favorite bands. So, you know, I like a bit of everything that's come out recently. I don't like all of it, but I like a bit of it. There's always a song that catches my eye. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a fucking great song. Like, you know, the obvious ones off the last record, and Death Magnetic had actually a good size of them that I liked. It wasn't my favorite. You know, the sound of their records is obviously bad, but right. So back to Innovation. I think that we'll start with the bass. I think having the bass player switch up it seems to have made sense until, like, Rob came along. Like, I think Cliff was doing, you know, all the harmonizing and teaching them so many things about, like, songwriting and key signatures and all that sort of stuff, and arpeggios, and really, really cool harmonizing. And, you know, that fit the style of the 80s. Awesome. Cool. Then you get Jason Newsted, who's, you know, a bit more raw sounding, a bit more rudimentary, not in a bad way, but a bit more like just classic bass player, but with some chunk and whatever and on the bass sound, and very talented bass player. He's a very talented writer too. I mean, the Blackened riff is one of my favorite riffs ever, and, you know, Jason Newsted wrote it. But he seemed to fit the agenda, or fit, like, what's going on from, you know, the mid 80s to when Rob joined in the 2000s. That was cool. And, you know, Jason Newsted's great. But then you get Rob. And Rob, again, is a phenomenal bass player. He really is. He's great at playing bass. But he's not an innovator. He's not, like... He doesn't drive the band in any shape or form. He kind of just plays the bass. He's a rent-a bass player. He's been in many bands, and, you know, that's cool. But, like, I don't know. It's just unfortunate that they lost Newsted, because Newsted was awesome. And, you know, it's unfortunate that they lost Burton, obviously. And yeah, it just seems like maybe that isn't helping anything. I don't think it's the main problem, but I don't think it's helping anything at all. And then we get to, you know, like I said, Kirk with the solos. The solos are just bothersome. The sound of his guitar is even bothersome. Like, it's just, like, dark and kind of annoying, and the solos are always like, wow, 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 you know, and it's like, I don't know. Some of the solos, again, you get some good stuff. Like, you know, That Was Just Your Life had a pretty cool solo. I can't even think of the great solos from the newest record, but there was some good stuff on there too. But most of them are just him hitting like a, you know, it's just, God, you know what I said. Wow, you know, on the fucking tremolo and the wah pedal, it just seems to dominate everything. And, you know, it's almost like I'm begging for a traditional fucking solo. Just like, at this point, it's like, you've made the not traditional solos for long enough. Just give me something that's, like, shreddy and good, but, like, you know, like, not necessarily 100% like the old stuff, but just better. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I sound like such an asshole, I feel like, but I just don't really give a fuck for the new guitar solos. They're not, like, it's not great. But so then we've got Lars and James, who, again, are still putting together awesome songs, but I mean, they've you know, lost their way a bit too. We've got James, who's, like, you know, all happy all the time and like in and out of being sober and not. And like, I'm not going to sit here and tell people to do drugs, but I mean, and like drink and like, have too much sex and all that. But I mean, there's something to be said for people who do drugs. I mean, it does produce good records. It sucks, but I mean, Alcoholica was putting out awesome fucking records. Can't argue with me there. They were putting out awesome fucking records all through the 80s. And, with his singing style and stuff like that now, it feels like they play to a lot of gimmicks about Metallica. Instead of playing to their strengths, they play to the gimmicks that they think that fans are going to want and, what he thinks sounds really, really cool, which I don't really hate his new voice. Whatever. He's getting older. He's not going to be able to bark like he used to. Cool. But even like in the song writing, like the lyrics, it's almost like, what do the people think will sound cool coming from Metallica? Not like, what do I like and what, I don't know. And maybe that's not the case. I could be wrong, but it's a lot different than it used to be. And Lars just like straight up can't play the fucking drums. I mean, no offense. I mean, he's a great writer and he's a great composer, but he can't play the fucking drums anymore. Even in like the recordings, you can like hear how choppy it is. And I mean, you could hear how choppy it was on some of the other records, but it was like organic. It was natural. It was cool. And, you didn't know that they were recording into a computer anyway. So you're like, how do you even suck when you're recording into a computer? It's like, I was listening to Death Magnetic yesterday and I was like, his like kicks are like, they made it so clicky and weird, like a death metal kick or something like that. But at the same time, he's still playing like choppy. So it just, the sample or whatever's on there, it just sounds so wrong. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. But so there's like what I think is like wrong in like the band, I guess. But yeah, I think having the type of fans that they do have impacts a lot of their choices as well, because I mean, almost everything they do, they're met with like 50-50 divide, like fuck you, we love you. And this has been happening for a long time. I mean, they were even scared to do like something like Fade to Black with like ballads and stuff like that in the 80s. I mean, they've been taking flack for a long time. And, the Black Album came out, people were breaking CDs and whatever. And, I'm sure they don't give a fuck about any of that. They made bank on that, right? But I just think there's, when you get older, the innovation is just gone. There's always going to be a point in your career that you get to when the music isn't as good as this one point in your career. That's always going to happen, no matter what. That's just, whether it's music or movies or whatever, you're a fucking lawyer, I don't care. There's always going to be a point in your career when you're like, this was the apex. This was the height of my career, and I'm never going to do anything as good. So why try? I think revisiting old themes and old ideas and old music is really not the way to go. Do I have the answer for how the fuck they should innovate? No, but I think innovation's kind of just gone anyways in like music in general. But we've seen tons of bands that like prove time and time again that you don't have to change the formula to make it different, or like to make it sound good and to be a little bit different, but you don't have to sound exactly the same every fucking time. Like AC/DC, for example. Their last record fucking kicked ass. Did it sound like everything else they've done for the last 40 years? Kinda. But it fucking rocks. That's what's good, you know what I mean? I think the problem with jumping onto a trend and like throwing your own spin on it is that like that's all you're doing. You're just jumping on it for the sake of jumping on it and being like, well, I think we could do something cool with this. Cool, nothing wrong with trying stuff, but like just doing it for the sake of doing it seems like out of the question to me. So you've got a band like AC/DC who goes for like 40 fucking years just killing it on the same sounding shit all the time. But they put out bangers, man. They put out bangers. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Metallica's been acting like their music's broken almost every record they do. Now, like I said, there's nothing wrong with trying things, but I don't think trying things on like the scale that they try things is like a great idea. They switch teams all the time. I don't know. So I'm not expecting innovation. Innovation isn't like the first thing I would expect from a new Metallica record. I expect callbacks to other songs and throwing in gimmicks like having these long songs, right? They're like, oh, we want to write a long ass song like Spit Out the Bone. We want to have like a lot of riffs in it. Okay, Spit Out the Bone didn't have to be 8 fucking minutes long. That was so unnecessary. It was a good song. That song could have kicked ass with like 3 less riffs in it. Really could have, honestly. It was a great track. I liked it. I liked the idea of it. I liked the lyrical content. I liked the recording of it. Honestly, it was great. It kicked ass. I'm like, this is awesome. But it just kept fucking going. Like, they think that they're like, oh, we're going to go back to our roots means we're going to write long songs for the sake of writing a long song. No, put the music first. Write a long song if you want to, but if you're just going to throw in the riff ideas you have left over because you don't want to fucking give them up or whatever, that doesn't seem like you're serving the music to me. It seems like you're serving yourselves or you're just serving the fans. And, and I keep coming back to this, like, fan service. And it doesn't seem like they're doing it for themselves. It seems like they're doing it for their fans. And I wish I could say differently, but, and when it translates over, it actually ends up kind of making the fans angry. Because it doesn't sound like somebody trying to return to their roots. It doesn't seem like somebody trying to, even please the fans. It doesn't come across that way. It comes across as you trying to like rake money out of me or like whatever and hop on a sinking ship and try to get. It just doesn't translate. It doesn't translate the way they want it to. I think fans get almost offended by like the fan service. It's like Star Wars, you know what I mean? Everyone's like, cool, call out. We get episode 7. You're like, oh, awesome, man. There's Millennium Falcon. There's this guy. There's Luke Skywalker. Han Solo. Oh my God, awesome. Then when you step back and think about it, you're like, oh, there was like no fucking real plot here. Like you just got a bunch of shit from the original movies. Oh wow, okay. Thanks Star Wars and Disney for what? That's what I think they're doing when they're writing these long songs or these really heavy songs is like let's see, how we can just please the fans since Saint Anger happened. And it doesn't always work for me. And, maybe you guys disagree with me, but I just think that that's something that's almost ruining the music is like, they act like they don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks, but they're constantly doing what they think is right for everybody else. And almost playing it off like it's for them. But I mean, they just want a fan base who believes in Metallica. And why wouldn't you? This is a band. And I mean, their YouTube channel is growing. And I mean, I'm sure they're getting tons of fans and people love their music. But I mean, for the most part, people love their old music. I don't know. But I just think that the new record is going to have a lot of that kind of crowd. Fan service, weird recording, weird like mixing, all that stuff. It's probably going to be there, and that's just a reality we kind of have to live with, I think, now at this point. And another reality is like the callbacks and all that stuff. So I don't think they're doing anything wrong per se, but they're not doing like the best stuff ever, and I don't expect them to. Like I said, one day you're gonna get there, and your best work is gonna be behind you. Fine. But I think finding a way to change and grow in like a positive way would be better. Like maybe innovating isn't what they need to do. Maybe it's just sitting down and putting out a good record that isn't undeniably mixed bad or like kind of like cheesy lyrical content or something like that. Like at this point, they were saying something about like if we all continue to be at home, then we'll likely see a Metallica record. Well, what happens when everyone goes back out? Are we not going to get a Metallica record, or are we going to get a Metallica record with content that was like written about like COVID or something, which I assume will be on there, because they're not trendsetters, they're trend followers now at this point, right? Like since the 90s, they're trend followers. So what's the trend is talk about COVID. I assume we're going to get a song about COVID that's going to be outdated and fucking stupid. I don't know, but they're a great band and I love them and they're very, very talented, but the like writing has gotten a lot, it's just kind of gotten stale. I don't know. The gimmicks is what really kills me. And I know I'm kind of just like rambling here or whatever, but I'm just not expecting, I'm expecting a bit worse than Hardwired and Death Magnetic, to be honest. I don't know where else they could go. And I think maybe just like letting go of that, like, we need to put out this style of music stigma just needs to go the fuck away. And I think I've already mentioned it about like the fans, but fans are so unfucking forgiving that, I mean, how could they ever know? I don't necessarily think it's 100% their fault. How could they ever know what you guys are going to want or what I want when, like, half their fan base is diehard. Like, nothing Metallica does is ever wrong. I liked that album for this. I liked the snare on Saint Anger. The guitar tone on Hardwired wasn't that bad. All this kind of crap. It wasn't that bad on Death Magnetic, and, I actually kind of liked the mixing, and it just... there's tons of them out there. But then there's, guys who, Metallica stopped at the Black Album, or it stopped at Injustice for All, rather. You got guys who will not for a second be like, that's a good song, I like that. They're like, I'm thrash metal, Metallica died in the fucking 80s. Okay, that's your opinion, and that's fine, but I think having this divide between fans, it's like they probably have no fucking idea what anybody wants anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they put out the Black Album, and that was different, widely regarded as such a good album, but then that opened to a new fan base. And in the new fan base, they weren't expecting fight fire with fire. You know what I mean? They were expecting something, with some groove and some lyrics and some good singing and all that. And then, I think having certain tools at their disposal has had something to do with it as well, like, auto-tune, or like, I don't really know, but I don't think their main goal is coming out and putting out the best record ever. I think it's coming out and making money and keeping whatever career they have still alive. And I mean, they're still one of the biggest touring bands. They still make tons of fucking money. And I hate to sound like I'm ragging on them, but which is basically all I've done. But I mean, okay, let's move into some positives then. If I'm gonna sit here and take a shit on them, let's just talk about maybe something positive that might come out of the album. It's gonna sound heavy. I know they said something about it sounding really, really, really heavy, which is awesome. Hardwired was heavy, no denying that. Death Magnetic was heavy, there's no denying that. I mean, even Saint Anger to some extent was heavy. Whether you like it or not, that's up to you, but it was heavy, or at least heavier than the stuff they were putting out, right? So they said it's going to be heavy, and I like heavy, and I thought there was a bit more weight behind like the drums and the bass in Death Magnetic and Hardwired. Especially the drums on Hardwired got a lot better. Still not my favorite, but I like them a lot, probably tenfold over the Death Magnetic drums. So heavy is good, but is it just going to be the same sounding stuff, or like a recall of an old song? I don't know. I'm really hoping not. But so I heavy we're probably gonna get some awesome riffs, because like any of the songs off of any of their albums or not, always have good riffs. Hetfield is the riff master, riff life. That is he's so fucking good. I mean, oh, his riffs are just amazing. Like, I can't even fathom, you know, his riffs are so good that some of them people just like can't even understand how to play, you know, like that's how good he is at writing riffs. And they're always like a hook, they're catchy, they're just great, and they don't always have to be fast, they don't have to be slow, they can be anywhere, and he just knows how to do it. And he's been, you know, riding the same E note for 35 years. So I mean, that's amazing in itself. So I'm excited to hear the guitar riffs that we're gonna get coming up, because I'm sure there's maybe some old stuff that they've got, like riff tapes and whatever, that they listen to with some cool ideas and some new ideas. But in terms of like guitar and bass, I don't think Rob and Kirk are going to bring a whole lot to the table that's like new and awesome sounding. I think it's going to be James Hetfield who does the work, and you know, who handles the workload on like riffs and all that stuff. And then, you know, you've got Lars with the composition and all that. So I'm sure we're going to get like, you know, 3 awesome singles, probably some really good riffs. Drums, I'm not expecting anything spectacular, but you know, he holds it down good enough, I guess. And I'm gonna guess that they're gonna let Rob do a little more work, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm not a giant fan of Rob, but yeah, what do you guys think, man? It's hard for me to even imagine, you know, I'm trying to go off of like the timeline of what their albums sound like, but then you get to the 90s and then to the 2000s and everything's just all over the fucking place. So you like I said, there's no way of really telling exactly what's going to happen there, but I expect some good and some bad, and expecting otherwise, or expecting too much, or expecting not enough, or do people care enough anymore for them to release like new sounding music is another question that I would ask. I don't know. Maybe maybe that is the only way to do it. Maybe putting out, you know, similar sounding stuff to the old stuff, or really trying your best to sound like the old stuff used to do. You know, maybe that's the way to go, because maybe people just aren't buying it. You know, maybe it's, you know, with record sales or, you know, MP3s, whatever. I'm trying to think of why it might even be good to sound. And you know, again, I'm not going to say that it sucks going back to your roots. I'm just saying that the way that they go about going back to their roots is not the preferred method. I don't think having an idea of what you think people think you should sound like is like, oh, okay, that's how we're going to return to our roots. No, just return to your roots by having like an organic writing style and writing whatever comes out, but like, you know, maybe dialing back on gimmicks, dialing back on some of the, you know, long songs, dial back on weird solos and whatever. Give me something traditional and then some not traditional, maybe, you know, like serve the music. And that's my most important point today, I think, is that you have to serve the music, not the fans, not yourself even. You have to serve the album, the song, the lyrics. Everything has to be fitting and right. Is making a 8-minute long song right? Maybe it is, but it has to be organic. It can't just be an 8-minute long song with a bunch of fucking ideas slapped together. You know what I mean? Like, we did have that on Injustice for All, which is cool, but on Injustice for All, like, even though it was like spliced together, there was like something organic feeling about the whole album. I mean, it's just, you know, raw aggression and anger and tons of guitars all over the place. And, you know, they just wanted to be, they were like, we're going to step it up and be a little more progressive and, you know, like change how people think about Metallica in this way. And then, you know, it's going to be really, really angry sounding. And they did it. They, you know, all the bass jokes aside and all that, they made a aggressive, raw album that sounded like how they felt. And I don't really get that feeling from their newer records. Death Magnetic a little bit, but you know, it's not as natural sounding. It's never going to be as natural sounding, I don't think. So with that being said, so I did some pros, I did some cons. What I think there, I just, you know, it's tough. And I think all those things are problems. I think the audience is a problem. I think, you know, the way they think about their music is a problem. I think just how famous they are is a problem. How big they are, you know, it's when you have that massive of a following, you almost have to please people, right? I mean, you're also, you know, distributing it all over, and you know, you have to make an impact of some sort if they want to sell records. And you know, the impact for them, I guess, has been like, oh well, this is going to sound like our roots, so maybe some of the old fans are going to buy some of the stuff, maybe some of the new fans are going to buy it too, you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to, you know, work back to our roots, we're trying to make things feel like whole again and all that. And you know, I don't know if them being whole and things being happy and, you know, going back to their roots is the best way to go about it. I think maybe putting out just new music and or like, you know, I don't know, or maybe just don't put out new music. You know, they talk shit, like the band talks a lot of shit about, like, we don't want to be like the Rolling Stones. The last record they put out was 35 years ago and we've just been touring our greatest hits forever. But I mean, for the most part, after the first like year of the tour anyways, or maybe even shorter, they end up just playing half set of fucking, or like 3/4 set of classic songs anyways. You ever hear a fucking new song in an encore? Not really. It's like Enter Sandman, Seek and Destroy, and something else. I can't, you know, one of the like Garage Days songs or something like that. At least that's both times that I've seen them. That's what happened. They played Enter Sandman, Seek and Destroy, and I think Four Horsemen. So yeah, and maybe there's, you know, a lot of stuff in the world today to write about. That's great, but I think they already wrote an album in the time when writing about things was easier. Like 2016, you know, things were happening, man. I mean, right now nothing's happening. What the fuck are they gonna write about? COVID. Like, yeah, that's my guess, is that there's gonna be a fucking COVID thing and I'm gonna be pissed about it. And, you know, I don't know. I'm probably going to get shit on for this. This is my first podcast, and I'm probably going to get shit on for this. But I just don't think we're going to get what we expect, you know, and we never seem to. We just never seem to get what we expect. It's like, you know, you hear Saint Anger, and even you, like, see the cover and shit like that, and you're like, man, that's a cool name. Like, that sounds like it's going to be some fucking awesome music. And then like this guitar comes in, you know, you hear the start of the album and the muddy guitar comes in the fucking ear, and you're like, oh my god, man, like, fuck. And then they open Death Magnetic with a, you know, thrashier song, kind of going back to the roots, right? You've got That Was Just Your Life, which is a fucking awesome opener to an album. And I thought it kind of faked me out a little bit. I mean, yeah, sure, the album was heavier in general, and we did have a lot of fast stuff going on, and there was a lot of, you know, good things happening on that record, but it was kind of like a fake out for me. It was like, oh, you know, I mean, like Unforgiven 3 and shit like that. Like, you know, when it first came out, I loved that song. And then I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. I'm like, God, that's fucking cheesy. Why do we have to have a series of songs? Just stop, man. Like, it's not, no thank you. Unforgiven 3? Like, and I mean, at this rate, it's like, we're probably going to get an Unforgiven 4 on the next album. Like, fuck, man. We didn't get one on the last one, so we'll probably get one on this one. That's what I assume. If you go and follow, it's Black Album, Unforgiven, the first one. Then Unforgiven 2, I believe, does come on Reload. So that's skip an album, and then you put an Unforgiven on there. Skip another album, Saint Anger. Get to Death Magnetic, and there's Unforgiven 3. Skip another album, Hardwired, and we get Unforgiven 4. That's my guess. I'm putting my money on it right fucking now that there's going to be an Unforgiven 4 on the next record. Fight me. I don't know. But, yeah, so innovation's a problem. I think certain members are an issue. Not a huge issue, but an issue. I think the fan base is an issue. And I think that overall the I don't even know what I'm trying to say, the method is a problem, I guess. I like how they're going about returning to their roots is a problem. So the method. So, like I said, we're going to get good riffs. We're going to get some good stuff. Probably get some cool lyrics and some great choruses. I mean, they're great at writing banger choruses, right? Fucking awesome at writing banger choruses. We always get something that kicks ass. Like, what is that song called? So the song is Halo on Fire. This was a song that just rubs me the wrong way, and not why you think it does. I don't think it's a shit song. I think it's a fucking awesome song. But it's ruined by autotune. And I'm not one of those guys who's like, I fucking hate autotune. Whatever. If you're going to use it as a tool, use it as a tool. But make it subtle, man. And you got these choruses that are bangers of choruses. Amazing. Just absolutely wonderful chorus. And that song is no different. It's really heavy and it kicks ass. And then you've got this auto-tune verse that just, you got this flat note going across. It's just a perfect note, and it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound great, but I love the melody. I love the key signature, whatever they're doing there with the vocal on top of the guitar and the verse. It sounds cool. I like the soft thing to the heavy thing and the change in tempo and all that. Really, really cool. But the auto-tune just kills the song. It makes it sound so unnatural, and I find that that's the case for a lot of their music recently. I find that they're killing it with certain elements, and like auto-tune tends to be a big one for me. Like, you listen to S&M, the first one, and like auto-tune hadn't even been perfected at that point yet. The auto-tune was brand fucking new when that came out, about 2 years or 3 years old, I think. So it just sounded like a robot singing at some of the points, like No Leaf Clover, or I think the other one, the bad one, Nothing Else Matters. There's this part in there, and if you listen to the isolated vocal, you can actually hear it, like it just skips down to the next note. It's not natural. And you can hear it on some of his live vocals now and whatever. Cool. But, live vocals I don't really mind too much, but we know you're in your fucking late 50s, man. Just play. We don't care about the auto-tune. We don't care if you can't 100% hit notes. You know what I mean? It's ruining that ruins the music for me. S&M too, they did it. They put out a couple of promo videos, and the auto-tune wasn't that bad. When the album dropped, the auto-tune was out of control again, and people said that the concerts didn't sound anything like that. In fact, they said that he struggled a lot to hit the notes, and you can actually hear in the recordings that he is struggling, but it's still hitting that note. It doesn't sound natural. It's not good to me. So Halo on Fire, I mean, that really got to me, man. I was like, this song's awesome, but it's just ruined by auto-tune. So, I mean, now we've got another argument there. Are tools ruining the music? And I would say, yeah, for the most part. And I think I did mention this earlier, but yeah, I would say that the tools take away from the music. They take away from the live sound, the life of the music kind of gets sucked out of it if you over compress it, and there's no dynamic range, and then you also throw auto-tune on there. It basically just sounds like a bunch of fucking robots played on your record, and there's no fucking humans involved. Like, at this point, there's probably so much James Hetfield content in like vocal takes and whatever, they probably could take like AI and just splice together a Metallica record. Like, I just don't know. And I know that before auto-tune was invented, they would tune like with a with like a delay and then tune the delay as they go and whatever. But and like I said, there's no real problem with auto-tune as a tool, but I mean, using it to completely enhance your vocal performance because you can't actually do it is just another story. I mean, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel natural, and I don't think it sounds good. Does James Hetfield need it at this point? Probably to some extent, but there are ways to do auto-tune without making it sound so like obvious. Especially in metal, we don't want you to sound like that for the most part. Like some people do. Some people like that whole, like the core bands and stuff like that, and the high singing vocalist and the emo bands. Some people do want that, and it's fine in pop music, it's fine in hip hop, it's fine in whatever else, country or some shit, But I don't think rock and roll and metal and hard rock and all that, I don't think that there's a huge spot for auto-tune. I think there's a giant home for it here. I think it should stay in a hotel outside of rock and roll and metal. Just a little bit of ways away, comes in, for a visit, but it goes back to its hotel all the time, like it doesn't sleep on your couch when it comes to visit. So I don't think, I think that that's kind of an element too, is that, maybe their ability is just, down. And, I don't want to say that because, you see them live and he can still play. James Hetfield can still play. Kirk Hammett can't really fucking play. Rob's solid. Innovate or not, he's still solid on the bass. He plays the notes. He's great at fucking finger picking and all that. He's awesome. Lars can't play for shit live, but, records are different from live, so whatever. But yeah, auto-tune is, James obviously can't sing as good as he used to, and that's obvious, but just leave it that way. It's not a huge deal, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just nitpicking, but, I don't know. I don't want to be one of those fans who doesn't like everything that they do. And I don't want to be one of those fans who does like everything that they do. I like to have, my own opinion and whatever, but I'm a giant fan, so I'm okay with some use of auto-tune. I'm okay with, some use of samples or time aligning or whatever. I can deal with a small amount of it, but when the whole thing is on a track and you're getting these songs that are callbacks to old songs and you're getting auto-tune on top of it, it's like, where is the creativity? Where is the innovation? Where is the even just good music? It's, and I would argue that, this isn't going to be the best music you've ever heard. But I think you're going to get a heavy record with some long songs on it, some short songs, and, a mismatch of different, and a mismatch of different album sounds and all that. Riff sounds and things like that. But then it's kind of, fan service is just not the way to go for me. I don't think that you should be people pleasing. People pleasers aren't really liked in the real world, so why would they be liked in the musical world? Again, this is like talking about rock and roll and metal, because when you talk about like hip hop and things like that, like, fan service is like all they do. They just give the 16-year-old girls what they want and give them the auto-tune with the rapping and whatever. That's fine. Cool. But when you're giving me, a Metallica record, I don't want Metallica paint by numbers. I don't want Metallica, And Justice for All 2. I don't want some other band doing a version of what they think is a Metallica record. And that's what it sounds like at this point, is a new band trying to be a different band who's trying to be Metallica. I think maybe they should just make up their minds, come up with a sound, come up with a new guitar sound because yikes. And I think that maybe actually not giving a fuck, instead of pretending to not give a fuck and then trying to give the fans what they want, I think actually not giving a fuck about what you're doing and what people think about you is exactly the way to do it. And, but not like Saint Anger. People would argue that Saint Anger, they tried that, but they didn't. Saint Anger goes back to the first thing that I talked about here, which was Metallica, their first version of serving the fans and going to their roots is doing what everybody else around them is doing with a Metallica spin. Don't do that. Just put out a fucking Metallica record with a Metallica spin on it, and it won't even need a Metallica spin. It'll just be that already. Don't do the, hop on to the trend and whatever else. Just play some fucking music. And at this point, you guys have enough money and enough talent and enough, distribution and enough everything around you. You could probably put out a record, and no matter what you do, it'll sell records, obviously. But serving the fans is going to just alienate more people, I think. And often it does, because old fans, at least from what I've seen online, keep trying to go back. They're like, I tried to listen. I tried to give that record a chance, but it just sounded so bad, or the auto-tune, or the recording was bad, or, the song just sounded like this song, or whatever. I mean, it's not like nobody's giving it a chance. It's that, maybe they are a little rigid in their beliefs, but people out there are trying, and I think the expectation is to just sound more natural. I always think, from what I've seen on YouTube, from the work I've done, Metallica fans are pretty self-centered. They don't want 100% what the music, they don't want you to serve just the music. They want you to serve them. They want you to do exactly what they want and mix it exactly the way they want and whatever. And I'm not calling for like a specific thing to do. I'm just calling for a natural sounding, organic Metallica record, something that we can all be happy about in mixing and in writing and in everything else. And the question I'm asking myself today is, do they even have that in them? And are they just so far past their best work that it's just, kind of a lost cause, asking or believing in something and expecting something? So yeah, I don't know. That's all I got for today, guys. But you guys know who I am, CJ from State of Mercury. Check out my YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter at Mercury_State. I'm on Instagram at State_of_Mercury. I'm on Facebook at State of Mercury. And I am going to be having a Metallica rework coming soon, so please, guys, make sure you check that out, because it's Don't Tread on Me on Injustice for All and Creeping Death on Death Magnetic. All right, Mercury out.